Headed into another week of NFL football. Is hard to believe. We're already starting week 3 this evening with Thursday Night Football. It feels like just yesterday, the 2023 season kicked off, but a much better week here in week 2. Went 12-4 in our picks, leaving us with a total through 2 weeks of 20-12. So pretty happy with that. Hopefully we can keep that up with our week 3 picks, but as per last time, I do want to talk about a little bit of the storylines from week 2. And we gotta start with Nick Chubb. That knee injury was so tough to watch, and you just gotta hope that he can make a full recovery and get back to football. He had an injury like that in college, back at UGA, and obviously he was able to recover and become one of the best running backs in the NFL. If the surgeries go well, hopefully he can get back to being that guy again. It's so tough to see a guy that an entire team is built around go down like that, and it's back-to-back weeks. Rodgers and now Nick Chubb on Monday Night Football. Hopefully things start to kind of even back out and we don't see these catastrophic injuries, but that was such a bummer to see back-to-back weeks. As for some teams though, are the Rams actually good? Like, they beat the Seahawks week 1 fairly convincingly. They played the Niners tough. Now both of these are rivalry games, NFC West games, so maybe it's just teams being familiar with each other, but Puka Nacua seems to be really good, like another Cooper Kupp. I actually like what I've seen from the Rams, and I just did not expect that after literally the worst title defense, I believe, in NFL history last year. Are the Cardinals, like, not terrible? They had a 20 and also 21 point lead over the Giants. Now they blew that lead and lost the game in regulation, but they played the Commanders tough, and the Commanders actually don't look too bad. And now they played the Giants tough. Managed to blow that lead with the defensive coordinator from the Eagles over there as their head coach. You don't want to see stuff like that, but maybe they're not as bad as we expected. And I don't know where that leaves the Giants. Not good to go down that many points to a team that is expected to maybe end up with the number 1 overall pick next year. But at the same time, they made that comeback, and they did get the win. And finally, the Commanders, I mentioned them. I think Eric Bieniemy might be for real. He's got that offense looking really good. I thought they were going to lose to the Broncos, and they were down, I think, 21-3 in that game. Came back, ended up with a 2-score lead themselves, and then the Hail Mary and the controversial no call on the defensive pass interference on that 2-point conversion. Just an insane game. But that part of things aside, I've liked what I've seen out of the Commanders over 2 weeks, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Falcons as well. They're 2-0. They beat the Packers. They overcame a 12-point deficit. And Bijan Robinson looks the part. Still, I think the jury's out on Desmond Ridder, but boy, they have a really good backfield there in Atlanta. But let's get into some week 3 picks. We're starting with the Thursday night game tonight. Giants at 49ers. We're talking about a team that got blown off the field week 1, 40-0 against the Cowboys, and then went down 20-0 and 28-7 against the Cardinals, facing maybe the best team in the NFC. I don't think there's much more to say than that. The 49ers have looked very good. That was probably Brock Purdy's worst game last week, and they still won by 7, basically won by 10. They kicked a last-second field goal, essentially to cover the spread. So I got the 49ers winning this one. I would be amazed if it doesn't result that way. Our first 1 o'clock kickoff game, Falcons at Lions. I just mentioned the Falcons. They're 2-0. Lions are 1-1, coming off a tough loss to the Seahawks in overtime with a bunch of things happening there that definitely did not just go their way at the very end. I really like what I've seen out of the Falcons, but I don't think they're going to beat the Lions. That loss probably is going to sting a little bit. Again, losing in overtime is always tough. I think they rebound from that at home. I think they beat the Falcons and improve to 2-1 on the year. Now, Chargers at Vikings. I don't even know how you pick this game. These are two teams that are probably better than their 0-2 records would show, but historically, they just seem to find these ways to lose games that they probably otherwise should win. I mean, the Justin Jefferson fumble through the end zone, and there was a lot that happened after that play against the Eagles, but they end up making that game close. Maybe that extra touchdown early on in the game makes that difference. And for the Chargers to let the Titans move the ball down the field on these big plays, kind of like the Titans offense that we saw in 2021 when they got the number 1 seed, I was just very surprised that the Titans were able to get enough points to hang with the Chargers as good as their defense is. this feels like two teams that could just compete to find a way to not win this game. I think I'm going to pick the Vikings. I've got more faith for some reason in them. But 2-0-2 teams, two teams that need this game, somebody's got to win it, or maybe they'll tie. But I like the Vikings in this one just a little bit more. I don't feel great about it. Two teams that maybe don't need this game as badly. The 2-0 Saints traveling to Lambeau to face the 1-1 Packers. Packers coming off that game in which they blew a 12-point lead to the Falcons. I like the Packers at home here. Remember, the Saints have beat the Panthers on Monday night. Not a great look for either team there. And they were able to beat the Titans, who could not get those big chunk plays that they used to get down the field and beat the Chargers. So the Saints, while being 2-0, maybe haven't beaten the best of competition. The Packers at 1-1, also not the best. They beat the Bears and lost to the Falcons, but I like the Packers at home. I think that home field advantage is enough that they end up getting the win and going to 2-1. Moving to Duval County for Texans at Jaguars. The Texans actually looked better than I thought they were going to against the Colts. CJ Stroud threw for something like 368 yards. A lot of it was when down big already. And the Jags only able to put up 9 points against the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense looks to be for real, especially with Chris Jones coming back. The Texans, I think, are maybe on the upswing here a little bit, but I don't think they're in a position to beat the Jags. I got the Jags winning this one, going to 2-1. Texans, unfortunately, going to 0-3, but a more positive 0-3 than it could be. Speaking of 0-3, Broncos staring down the potential of being 0-3, going to Miami to play the Dolphins, maybe the hottest team in the AFC right now. They have looked really, really good through 2 weeks. Their offense is really impressive. Now, the Broncos were able to put up 33 points against the Commanders. Even at that, I'm not sure that's going to be enough. The Dolphins do have Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator now as well. Of course, he was in Denver for all those years. I imagine that's going to give them a little bit of an edge as well. It's Sean Payton's system, so going to be different than maybe what he was used to, but certainly it's not a bad thing to have a little familiarity with that organization. So I think the Dolphins win this one, go to 3-0, and really, really help their chances at winning that AFC East. Another 1 o'clock kickoff game, the Titans traveling to Cleveland to play the Nick Chubb-less Browns. And I really thought what we saw of the Titans last week was encouraging. They were able to get the run game going. They were able to get those chunk plays. The Browns defense is better than the Chargers defense. And I think they'll be able to slow down Derrick Henry enough that maybe those chunk plays aren't as open. The Browns' front seven especially is quite solid. And if they can slow down Derrick Henry and keep some coverage over the top for those deep shots to Treylon Burks and potentially DeAndre Hopkins, I was going to pick the Titans in this, and I'm almost talking myself out of it. I think I'm going to go with the Browns. I think they rebound after losing Nick Chubb and after losing to the Steelers on Monday night in insane fashion, going into the fourth quarter leading, giving up -7 yards, and ending up with the strip sack fumble of Deshaun Watson from Alex Highsmith. TJ Watt returns it for a touchdown, and they end up losing by 4. So, yeah, we're going to go with the Browns in this one. I'm changing my mind last second. I like the Browns to rebound and stay alive in the AFC North in the early going here. Potentially a sneaky good matchup that would not have been expected 3 weeks ago. Bills at Commanders. The Bills in week 1 did not look great, losing to the Aaron Rodgers-less Jets, and then in week 2, smoked the Raiders. The Commanders, on the other hand, 2-0 for the first time in a very long time, and they've looked impressive, especially offensively. I gotta think the Bills' offense just overwhelms this team. Keep in mind, though, Eric Bieniemy does have a good bit of experience against the Bills and has come up with a lot of good game plans to beat the Bills. But he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. He's got Sam Howell. Lots of weapons on that offense for the Commanders. I think they have bright things in their future. I don't think one of them is beating the Bills here in week 3. I got the Bills getting this win and going to 2-1. Another game with a potentially impactful injury. Colts at Ravens. Anthony Richardson suffered a concussion, I believe, in the first quarter of their week 2 matchup against the Texans. Last I saw, he is likely out, according to an NFL source. Now, there's a potential he still clears the concussion protocol and can play, but I'm not sure that changes my pick anyway. It definitely could make this game a whole lot closer. Gardner Minshew is not a bad backup either, but the Ravens have looked solid through 2 weeks. Week 1 against the Texans, maybe not the sharpest. Last week being the Bengals, even though the Bengals don't look quite as good as they have in the last couple of years, I still think it's enough to get past the Colts and end up going to 3-0 here to start the season. And for the last 1 o'clock kickoff here on Sunday, Patriots at Jets. The Patriots are riding, I believe, a 14-game win streak against the Jets. That's going back 7 years since the Jets have beaten the Patriots. And while the Jets are 1-1 and the Patriots are 0-2, obviously Zach Wilson did not look good against the Cowboys. The Patriots defense is quite solid, holding the Dolphins to 24 points, albeit they managed to block a field goal with a tell, I believe, from a holder that was with the Patriots. And even if they're holding the Dolphins offense to 27, that is not a bad day. Zach Wilson is not going to score 27 points against this defense. I think the Patriots continue this win streak, get another win against the Jets, and finally get into the win column in 2023. So moving on to a 4:05 kickoff, Panthers at Seahawks. The Panthers, of course, are 0-2. Bryce Young has looked shaky, but as you'd expect for a rookie quarterback, only having 2 NFL starts. The Seahawks, they lost to the Rams week 1 in a rather surprising fashion, and then come back and beat the Lions in week 2. Geno has looked as sharp as he did, especially at the beginning of last year. The addition of Jackson Smith-Njigba definitely does not hurt an already solid wide receiving core with Metcalf and Lockett, and I think they just ride that momentum into another win here in week 2. I've got the Seahawks over the Panthers. Moving to 4:25 kickoff games, Bears at Chiefs. Justin Fields and the Bears just have not had it this year, and there have been flashes, as there always are with Justin Fields, but there's such a lack of consistency. And even though the Chiefs offense has not looked the same without Eric Bieniemy, is it the lack of receivers? Is it that Travis Kelce's just coming back? Hard to say. I'm not sure it's very relevant in this game. I think the Chiefs will win this fairly comfortably and improve to 2-1 in the season, sending the Bears to 0-3. With a lot going on there, we're not even going to get into the defensive coordinator situation. Justin Fields talking about potentially coaching being the reason for playing robotic. It's just not a good scene in Chicago right now, and not that it really would have mattered anyway, but that certainly doesn't help their cause against the Chiefs. And for the last 4:25 kickoff game this week, Cowboys at Cardinals. Is there a lot to say here? We talked about the Cardinals maybe not being as bad as expected this year, but you can make a very good argument that the Cowboys at this point in time are the best team in the NFL. They're plus 60 point differential, not the greatest of competition they've played through 2 weeks. Their defense looks legit, their offense looks good enough, and I think they're only going to improve. Actually, so far, Mike McCarthy's play calling has seemed to be a net benefit for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys offense. So I think the Cowboys are going to beat the Cardinals here. Probably no shocking revelation picking the Cowboys for this win, but gotta pick them, and I got the Cowboys winning comfortably. Week 3's Sunday night matchup, Steelers at Raiders. Historically, the Steelers do not play the Raiders well on the road. The Raiders against the Bills last week just didn't look good. The Steelers against the Browns last week didn't really look that good. Their defense is for real. Really no doubt about that. Deshaun Watson didn't play particularly great, and they managed to play against Jerome Ford as the Cleveland Browns running back for most of the game. But even at that, their defense obviously has it. Can Kenny Pickett and maybe Matt Canada do something on offense? Because they're not going to be able to score 2 defensive touchdowns every game. This feels like a toss-up. Can the Steelers defend the middle of the field? Jimmy Garoppolo obviously likes to attack the middle of the field. That might be the Steelers' weak point with 2 new inside linebackers. I had to come back and change my pick on this one. I picked the Raiders, and then I got to thinking about it, and I looked at the stats. They're giving up about 140 rushing yards per game right now. This plays perfectly into the Steelers' hands in terms of what they want to do. They're a team that wants to run the ball, be conservative, win the turnover battle, play good defense, and win a low-scoring game. If there is a get-right game for the Steelers, and especially the Steelers' offense, this is probably it. If they can't manage some sort of rhythm on offense in this game, I don't know if I'll pick them the rest of the year, but I'm going to go with the Steelers. Looking at the stats, they played 2 good defenses. Maybe that's a little more responsible for their lack of offensive production these first 2 weeks than the actual offense itself. If they don't look good here, though, I don't know what else to say. So I'm going to pick the Steelers. Not super confident in it, but I got to change my mind. I got to go with the Steelers, and hopefully they prove me right, because that offense was a tough watch the first 2 weeks. And finally, to Monday Night Football, another doubleheader. We've got Eagles at Buccaneers, two 2-0 teams. One surprising in the fact that maybe they haven't been as dominant as we expect in the Eagles, and one surprising in the Buccaneers of just simply being 2-0. We're going to go with the Eagles here. I think that's the obvious pick. As good as the Bucs have looked, I don't think they can quite keep up with this Eagles offense, and I think the Eagles defense is better than what they've played against the Vikings and the Bears so far. So, picking the Eagles to win the early Monday night game, and then we move to the 8:15 kickoff. Rams at Bengals. The Rams are another one of these surprising teams. They're 1-1, but their one loss is against the 49ers, which who can blame anyone for losing to the 49ers? And the Bengals are 0-2. Now, the Joe Burrow injury is interesting. The latest reports don't really give any insight as to whether or not he's going to start this weekend. I think I'm going to go with the Rams. Not only because I think there's a chance they actually do sit Joe Burrow down and just try to get him healthy for the stretch run here. I also really like what I've seen from the Rams. The offense of wide receivers that most people can't even name. They just traded Cam Akers to the Vikings, but I'm not sure that really impacts things too much. I like the Rams in this one, especially given the uncertainty with the Bengals and the fact that even if Joe Burrow does play, he just hasn't looked himself with this calf injury. And I think that's enough to kind of sway the balance in the Rams' favor. And I tend to look at all these games before I do these picks videos just to kind of have an idea of where I want to go. And I think I changed my mind a couple of times during this video. I definitely thought there were less kind of toss-ups. And now looking back at it, there are definitely more games that I have very little confidence in my picks than last week. But just to recap, I've got the 49ers over the Giants, the Lions beating the Falcons, the Vikings over the Chargers, the Packers beating the Saints, got the Jags beating the Texans, the Dolphins sending the Broncos 2-0-3, got the Browns rebounding and beating the Titans, got the Bills over the Commanders, Ravens over the Colts, got the Patriots extending that win streak over the Jets, got the Seahawks beating the Panthers, the Chiefs beating the Bears, got the Cowboys beating the Cardinals. I changed up my pick. I got the Steelers over the Raiders, got the Eagles going to 3-0 against the Buccaneers, and finally got the Rams upsetting the Bengals on Monday Night Football. And that is going to do it for our Week 3 picks. So as always, I will copy and paste all the games in the comments below so you guys can make your picks. Let me know how you guys have done throughout the season. Let me know how you do this week. And with that, that's going to do it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.